panel B for today's session. This session will be moderated by Sumantra, who is the partner for KPMG India. A bit of introduction there for Sumantra. Sumantra is the conceptualizer and founder of the innovation and intellectual property advisory services in KPMG India and is currently leading the practice. He has been recognized by IAM Strategy 300 as a top IP strategist in 2017 and 2018. Welcome, Sumantra. Welcome, all the panelists. Over to you.
Thank you for the kind introduction. And I think here on this panel, while I was getting onto stage, I was thinking that the cumulative experience of this panel is, I guess, more than 170 years combined, right? So I think the minimum experience that I saw was probably around 20 years on this panel, and with our having more than 30 years of experience, right? So that's a great. So what I'll do is I will give a quick introduction to all the panelists. One more person is likely to join. He is stuck somewhere. But in the meantime, we will start. So I'll start with Abhay first, right? So I'll not go in any sequential order as such. So Abhay is a telecom veteran with over 32 years of experience. And before joining Nokia as the CTO for global sales in cloud and network services, he was the CTO at Bharti Airtel for 5 years. So welcome, Abhay, to the panel. Then I'm going to introduce Vikas. Vikas is sitting right next to me. So Vikas is the head of strategic solutions at Tata Consultancy Services. Vikas also comes with a huge amount of experience, I think more than 20 years. He has served TCS, he has served Bharti Airtel, and he has played multiple roles within these organizations, and comes with an extremely rich experience. So thank you, Vikas, for joining us today. Then we have Somer. Somer, hi. Somer is the director and head of customer and partner engineering at Intel. Somer has over 20 years of experience managing diverse portfolios such as sales, partner programs, technology enablement across APJ and PRC markets. So a very warm welcome to you, Somer. Then we have Rohit. Rohit Jain. Rohit is from Airtel. Rohit heads the Airtel IQ business and has more than close to 20 years of experience again. Rohit has delivered some cutting-edge CPaaS solutions, transforming customer experiences and communications. Again, I think great bit of experience here that we see. Tejas right now is not here with us. He will join us. He had to rush for an emergency meeting. Then we have Hardeep. Hardeep Saini, Senior Director Engineering at Qualcomm. He's based in Mumbai. In this role, Hardeep's key responsibility is to shape technology strategy and drive adoption of Qualcomm's advanced technologies in the region. Prior to joining Qualcomm in 2004, which is now 20 years with Qualcomm itself, Hardeep was part of Lucent Technologies, and he started his career with Netcraft, right? So welcome, Hardeep. And last but not the least, we have Kishore. So Kishore heads the AI ML at Tanla Solutions. He also is the founder and CEO of Ganmuga Softtech Private Limited, a marketing automation solution to help e-businesses deliver personalized actions to their customers through various channels, right? So a very warm welcome to all the panelists here. And I think for most of you, it will be a part B of the session that you attended between 3 and 4 p.m. today. So I would assume that there would be a lot of repetitions of the topics that would have been discussed in the earlier session. But the best part is that because we have now a new set of panelists, so we are likely to see a different perspective to each of those pointers, right? And now, generative AI, AI has been there for long, right? So AI is not something new to any of us. And the latest buzz that we have seen around generative AI, and we have seen specifically after the Chat GPT initiation, where it has become a buzzword for everybody, right? So there are a lot of optimism around Gen AI. There is a lot of what do you call apprehensions about what it will do to the job market, what it will do to the environment. Um, is Gen AI going to replace human individuals in terms of the work being performed? And as we see that there are a lot of use cases that organizations are working towards day in and day out, trying to see that how this tool can actually enable us and increase the productivity of organizations, right? And not only organizations, it can be for individuals also, it can be for code writers, it can be for content creators, it can be for anyone, right? So my first question will be to Abhay, that Abhay, I would want that maybe if you can take a minute or so to just talk through the audience in terms of what Gen AI is, right? And what are the basic construct, what are we looking at? Because I'm sure that in this audience, we have people who are probably an expert in Gen AI and people who just have heard the term Chat GPT or OpenAI. So just to bring all of us on the same page, Abhay, if you can just maybe give us some context.
Thanks, Sumantra. So I'll talk about a few things, few facts that have happened over the course of last 6-7 months, which will give you the kind of flavor that artificial intelligence has created in the market, right? So on one day, Microsoft and NVIDIA, they gained 192 billion in stock price. Can you beat it? The NASDAQ index during the course of first 6 months grew 32% just because there were a few companies which were working on AI, and that started happening. This kind of a, what do I call, huge interest in AI, how did it happen suddenly? AI is not new, as Mantra mentioned. The first starting point of AI was as old as 1936. None of us were born at that point in time. And this goes to Alan Turing's invention of machines and how machines can be made intelligent, to the extent that today, Alan Turing's methodology is the test of how close a machine is mimicking human brain. So it dates back to that level. But from whatever we understand, McCarthy being, somewhere around 1956, this again got revived, and that's kind of assumed as the time when AI was born, or like AI started getting adopted. We don't realize it, but most of us have been using AI capabilities in some form or the other in our daily lives. Simplest of all example, most of us must be using Alexa or Google Mini or things like that. How do they work? How do you think they work? How are they able to synthesize your speech and do the action that you are asking them to do? It's all nothing but AI. But what changed? As I said, that the companies who are working on AI suddenly gain this kind of evaluation. The entire NASDAQ index goes crazy about it. And today, if you speak about any company, they want to do AI. What has changed? Fundamentally, the difference that has happened was most of the AI things that used to happen in the past were action-oriented. They would analyze a few things and generate a certain action based on whatever they are analyzing, and then they are making it happen. The difference that has happened in the recent past is with generative AI. Now, what does generative AI do fundamentally? Different from the earlier versions of the AI which were mostly action oriented. This is able to generate content. It is creativity. Mankind prides itself for only one thing, and that is creativity. Now you have a challenger to that mankind, that whatever you can create an art, generative AI can create an art. You can create an article, generative AI can create an article. You can create an image, generative AI can create an image. And therefore it is the very fundamental thing which is creativity in human beings which is getting challenged. And therefore this is creating a lot of hype and a lot of it has kind of become a buzzword when we talk about generative AI. I hope we all get to the page that what exactly is the difference on what we have been using versus what's new that we are getting into. Thank you.
Thank you, Abhay. Very relevant point. So my next question is to Somer. Somer, so AI has been around, as Abhay was telling, for some time, right? Why this sudden change, and in terms of everybody running, and if you look at the newspaper, I see that maybe I think most of the sections of the newspapers are taken by AI. And more or less all organizations across the world are investing in this technology, right? Be it generative or predictive AI. So what has changed suddenly that everybody is just running after this?
Thanks, Sumantra, for the question. At Intel, we use a term called technology inflection point, started by our revered founder, Andy Grove, right? I think there are three factors that are affecting this conversation. Number one is COVID has primed us to accelerate the use of technology. So the inhibitions we had for using technology over COVID has kind of reduced, number one, right? Second, I think the technology and infrastructure, right? I think it was getting ripe to reflect human interactions. Like, for example, artificial intelligence, the word intelligence makes more sense. But if you look at you, me, or anybody else, if you look at me, you, me, or anybody else, the interaction is multimodal in the sense of speech, text, video, take it, right? Now, when you look at this multimodal conversation, today, if you look at the advancements in compute, the advancements in network, the advancements in security, within a reliable latency, what have you, you're able to give that multimodal experience back to the customer, right? Again, we have to use a hybrid AI approach to do that, all that great, but technology was ready to do that. Third, when you have the people are primed, the technology existing, you need a killer application. And let's not be confused, ChatGPT was a killer application that did happen. So I think the three things that I bring it together is timing, the availability of infrastructure to do that, and last, the killer application, which is ChatGPT. I think all three came together to make it say, hey, it actually mimics what a human being can do. And that's kind of my personal point of view on this.
Sure. Thanks, Somer. So I'll now call upon Hardeep. Hardeep, so we know that this is there, and I'll come in a bit in terms of to understand also what at an organization level all of you are doing to kind of embed generative AI to kind of increase the efficiency of the businesses. But how do you think that this application can be scaled up, and the application of Gen AI can be scaled up, and it can be made more pervasive? And do you also think that are there any barriers to this ambition?
So in terms of making it more pervasive, first thing is you have to figure out where it is being used. So whether it is, what are your end devices? So it could be your smartphone, it could be your car, it could be your XR device, it could be your laptop, PC, IoT device. You could have a range of devices. Now, in terms of making it more accessible, once you have it on the device, there are two ways to do it. One, you could send all the data to the cloud and then come back with a response. The other element would be that you have model running locally, and you could use what we think is a hybrid AI approach, where there are various mixes and matches. You have to think about something similar to a mainframe and a thin client moving to cloud and edge client, right? So from in terms of the trends, what you will see is one, I think the challenges are in terms of cost. The cost of uh, generative AI query is probably around 10 times the cost of a regular search. So over a period of time, what you will see, it is prohibitively more expensive to support a generative AI query, right? So what you have to do is figure out how you can run that optimally. So in terms of doing that, it's a combination of running some queries locally, which will be a smaller, let's say, LLM models, which could run on device. And second could be how do you offload it, which specific things you offload. So you will have arbiter in the device itself, which will figure out that, okay, this can be run locally, and this I have to offload to the device. Or the other model could be you could run few functions on the device, other functions could be run always on the cloud. The very simple example will be that I could run a voice to text, which could be fed locally because I have voice recognition based LLM running on the device, and that query could go to the cloud and come back, and then I could do text to speech as well. So that's the other element. And then in terms of putting it all together, you will see two trends. One, the LLMs by themselves are becoming bigger and bigger. If I have to kind of give you a trend, you had GPT-1, which was around 170 million parameters. GPT-2, I think a few billion parameters. GPT-3, I think around 70 billion parameters. Going to GPT-4, which is estimated to be around 1.8 trillion parameters. So models are becoming increasingly large. That's one trend. But the other trend is the foundational model, the people who generate foundational models, they are also trying to make the model smaller as well. So you have like Llama 2, you have a model, 3 versions of the model, if I can use that word. So you have 7 billion parameters, you have 13 billion parameters, and you have 70 billion parameters. So you can easily, and we announced a couple of chipsets just 2 days back. You could run around 10 billion or 13 billion, whether it's a laptop or a PC, 10 billion or 13 billion parameters locally on the device. So going forward, as you make it more accessible, you could also make it more available as well. And then from there, cost goes down, energy goes down, you have better privacy, you have better security. One of the reasons why organizations, I think we don't encourage right now some of these unless we have a corporate supported thing, the data does not go out of the corporation, right? So there are privacy concerns around that, there are security concerns around that. So local models in conjunction with cloud would be a good combination to address some of that, and then you can do personalization on top.
Sure. So thanks, Hardeep. Now I'll move to Rohit and then to Vikas. Maybe if you are able to give us a few use cases that you as an organization are trying with GenAI, and are you seeing, because I think in one of the recent TMT forums only, the thing which I heard was that though they are being kind of leveraged by organizations, are you seeing or have you seen where there is a good amount of benefit that you are getting by leveraging these models from an operational standpoint?
Mm-hmm. Sure. So I represent Airtel here. Airtel has around 350 million plus users, right? And an organization with that kind of a user base spreading across the country, right, with different languages, right? Plus Airtel being the company, right, that adopts new technology, right? Be it 5G or be it Gen AI, right? So the very first use case that we are actually exploring is how Gen AI can help in customer service, right? We were already doing conversational AI, we were already doing intent detection and all those things in our chatbots. But now the next thing is generative AI, right? So the customer interactions that happens on our call centers, right? How we can basically create summaries of those interactions, right? And how those summaries can actually be fed back to the original knowledge base, and so that the second customer that comes, right, that his query can be answered through the ever evolving knowledge base, right? The other thing in customer services, how our chatbot can answer customer query, right, without actually you have to create journey. So what happens in chatbot, for every identified journey, right, there is someone who creates the journey in the backend, right? But with generative AI, right, you don't need to create any journeys, right? Specifically, this is a recharge journey, this is this journey, right? You just provide your knowledge base, and the chatbot will be able to answer majority of your questions, right? This actually helps our agents, right, with a lot of reduced load. The second thing that we are actually exploring is that for an organization with huge size, right, there are a lot of documents, right, content within the organization, right, contracts, right. How can we make internal, basically knowledge sharing more efficient, right? So something like conversational search. So all the policies, documents, right, we have done a project wherein we have trained our large language model, right, on our knowledge base, so that employees can access internal information, right, in a much more convenient way and a easier way, right? Obviously taking care of the security, etc., right? No content should go outside your organization, right? That's the first principle. Uh, Besides that, right, I represent engineering, right? So there are developers in the organization, right? And there are tools that like Microsoft has come up, right, or Google or maybe Amazon, right? Code Whisperer, Copilot, right? So we are also exploring, right, some POCs around those tools, right? How those tools can help improve developer efficiency. One of the major drawbacks is obviously these tools cannot basically generate the entire code, right? It cannot replace a developer, right? But few easy tasks like some utility functions or generating test cases from your code, right, that can be easily done by Copilot. The third area, right, where as an organization we are not directly involved, but I think because the ecosystem of generative AI is evolving, right, we will be helpful. It will be helpful to us. So, for example, Microsoft Outlook 365, I think they are coming up with you can auto-generate an email, right, that will eventually help employee productivity, or let's say Bing search, right? It also has Chat GPT inbuilt, right? So ultimately, it will also help. But at an organization at Airtel level, right, we are very concerned on the security aspects, right? So no matter how easy it is available on cloud, right, uh, still I think the world is evolving, and we have to be very, very concerned on the data not being going out of the organization, right? So that's my take.
So basically, Gen AI is something which I think most of the organizations are using to enhance the customer experience or the user experience, right? I think that's one pretty loud use case that we see across various domain, right? Flipping the same question to you, because at TCS, I'm sure that you are doing for your own setup as well as for a lot of clients that you serve. A lot of these use cases must be coming. So what kind of disruptive trends are you seeing in terms of from a usage perspective that people are looking at?
Yeah, sure. Am I audible? Yeah. So in TCS, I work with the Network Solution and Services Unit, and TCS being a large organization, the various experiments happening using Gen AI at various industry vertical, be it life sciences, be it retail, banking, and all of that. But right now, I'll just talk more from telecom network point of view. And this, when this Gen AI came in, and all of us said that, what we can do for the customers. And at the same time, customers starts, asking us that, can you suggest us? So there are three typical things which we are looking at, and that comes with a bit of a thinking that Gen AI has primarily made unstructured data, working on unstructured data very, very easy. So for example, the AI was everywhere in our life, but earlier it was in the hand of, the people like Amazon, Google. So they were selling you shampoos or hair conditioner with AI. Now it is the turn where people can do a lot of creativity. So the power has come to the masses. That's one thing which has come through the Gen AI in terms of the creation, in terms of the putting it different business value proposition. Now come to the network. We look at that where exactly unstructured data is. Because structured data side, we have been doing a lot of things. We are pretty mature in our cognitive network operations, doing predictions, correlations and all. Now we found 3 areas very, very critical. One is if you look at the complete network rollout cycle, and that's where you capture a lot of images, videos from your field or from sites where all these wireless antennas, everything is there, and you have to regularly, not only installing, but you have to regularly monitor those. So that's where you capture images and all. So that is one area we are working on generative AI to generate some ideal site locations, kind of thing. If I have a FDD antenna, TD antenna, I have a given marketplace, what can be an ideal scenario? Now, second thing, there is a lot of code generation which happens for the site integration. That's another area we want to integrate sites. So there is one site come, 10 sites around it, neighboring site, how we can integrate, how we can generate the code. Now for us, TCS is the challenge or opportunity is that we are a network agnostic player. So for Ericsson or for Nokia, it might be easy because that's their patented technology, they can do it. But when I prepare a solution for my client, I have to look at that, it has to be network agnostic. That's second. And then the third area is more into the B2B space. Again, B2B, there are 2-3 things internally B2B. I'll just talk a bit technical, in the B2B network. So if you're managing, if Airtel is managing a B2B network or Idea managing or Geo managing, you manage in two ways. One place you will be managing some customer devices, giving the connectivity, and some place you will be managing your devices for customer connectivity as well as giving connectivity to them. Now, that's where, if you look at L3 level, when you do some troubleshooting at the devices, at the protocol, at the configuration, your tasks become quite cumbersome. And then you might have seen certain outages going like 4 hours, 8 hours or something. So how can we use generative AI to create some customized script using or reading those hundreds of manuals which are there because of the network, different generation of the network or different network providers, something like Cisco or a Juniper of the world or something. So that's another area. And then in the B2B, when you give them an interface to manage their own network, how can you give them a power to generate some dashboards on their own, some queries on their own? And that's where the power of generation, of generative AI comes handy. So these are the 3-4 areas. But the thing is that everyone and Hardeep talk very correctly that in terms of we are looking at parameters, because it's not easy to Gen AI as a buzzword looks very easy, ChatGPT looks very easy, but when it comes to enterprise adoption, there has to be ROI in place. So you do some investment, what will be the ROI? That is the because it is very, very energy consuming, it is very, very resource consuming, all of those things. So it's not going to happen in 6 months. It's an iterative journey, it's an evolutionary journey, and we are quite hopeful for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vikas. My next question is to Kishore, and I will move to a little different context. So all these generative AIs are built on large language models, right? LLMs. Now, the way these LLMs are trained, do you think that they become an expert in a particular domain, or they remain generalist? Now, I'll also put this question in another way, that means organizations do rely or sometimes on the data that is being generated by these models, right? Now, is it something that you can close your eyes and rely upon, or there are risks associated with it, and how do you kind of address those from an organization standpoint?
Okay, so there are 2 questions. I mean, I'll first answer the second one. So any response that you get from a LLM or generative AI is it has its own inherent risks. There is hallucinations, there are wrong answers, and it actually gives it very confidently, or the language that it uses appears to, I mean, when you try and read it, it has reason in it, but the underlying logic is flawed. So that is one of the reasons why you cannot actually rely on the responses that LLM gives without any expert evaluating it. So that is one of the reasons why probably in many of the fields the LLM's adoption is not scaling so well. So the thing that we have to actually try and do, to not make this happen is try and use this LLMs for the mundane kind of tasks that you actually can automate. So where the organization's expertise can actually check for the veracity, for the correctness of the output that it is giving. Beyond that, if you actually, I have no knowledge in agriculture. No, if I want to start, doing agriculture with the help of LLM, understanding that it's an expert, so I'll get nowhere. So I first have to know what kind of questions to ask. The second thing that I need to know is to be able to evaluate if the answers that it has given are right or not. So that is where the problem with LLMs is. Generally, because of the way the LLMs are trained, I mean, the first question that we're trying to answer is there no place for experts? I mean, because LLMs are able to generate everything and anything, are creative in their own ways, is there no need for human experts? So the thing that happens generally in the training of LLMs is that they become a average expert in their field of training. So if an LLM is trained in medicine, it actually becomes an average doctor. But for anything that is beyond average, if you want the field to be pushed through, push the horizons of the field, LLMs cannot actually help you. So basically, there is a human component always ever existing in the LLM world. I mean, LLMs can actually be the average expert, like I've said, and actually help you be the assistant, doing all the mundane tasks for you, but then they can never turn out to be the real expert. The real expertise will always reside with the humans.
Very right. At least at this point of time. We don't know what, yeah.
So I have an opinion on that, but
I'd like to recollect one example of what Kishore just said. I don't know how many of you read, but ChatGPT was asked to take IIT entrance exam. Did you read that? The result? I mean, any one of you? So over a period of last so many years of IIT entrance exam, ChatGPT was asked to write that exam, and the scoring was good, but it did not get selected. So that tells you what is the level that we have today, or how much we can rely, or how much we can work on that.
Absolutely. You had a point of view, right? You said.
yes. So basically, the way large language models work today, I mean, it's my version of understanding of how they work. So the logic and the knowledge are clubbed into the same model. The day you can actually move them out, the logic needs to be separated out from logic. That is when, essentially what you're saying, the hallucinations will reduce because you have full control on the knowledge. Knowledge cannot be, okay, LLMs are stochastic, as in they're probabilistic models. They're not deterministic. If you have a language, if you move out language and, logic and knowledge being deterministic, logic being stochastic, you can actually create models which do not hallucinate. I mean, I don't know if that's possible or not with the way the current training methodologies, but that's the direction I think. I think there will be a V2 of Gen AI, where these kind of hallucinations do not exist, where there is at least some kind of determinism in the output that it gives. Point number one. The second thing that we also need to understand is, if you have to push additional knowledge into an existing LLM, you have multiple ways, fine-tuning, you have RAG methods and all. But that's not the way human actually works. If today I do not know that Delhi is the capital of India, and I'm told Delhi is the capital of India, I don't need it to be reiterated 20 times in my training data, things like that. So I know what is for a fact and what is not a fact, and I know how to ingest that data into my mind. So that is something that is actually missing. The day we separate out logic and knowledge, the knowledge can actually be improved on the fly every day. I mean, we won't start to have these limitations of Jan 2022. So the language keeps, has its own iteration path. The logic or the analysis of that knowledge, or the output of that knowledge using the logic, that has its own evolution. So both of them together can actually give a beautiful output. So wait for that day, hopefully sooner.
Yeah, I had a quick comment as well. I think the key here is the training data. I think so. One of the things you have to do is to have good quality training data. And there are a lot of challenges around it to get good quality training data. So for example, so that's one part of it. The other part of it is that you have to have domain-specific models. I think even in propagating it, you have to have domain-specific models. So if you are doing a health-specific AI, in that case, you could train it on a health-specific data set, right? But then you have to be a hospital, you have to be a doctor to have access to that kind of data. And once you have that, then the quality, if you're trying to do a generic LLM, you will get middle of the road, like you said, answer. But if you get access to that good quality data, then you make it a lot more relevant. And the other component I think he was talking about is on a given day, just output will be average if you feed the average data set. But a human plus the generative AI, that will increase the value tremendously. So you have to look at it as a combination rather than two separate independent elements.
Again, like to give an example of what both of them said. You would remember that computers play chess, right? That's exactly a similar thing what happened. And computer playing chess was able to beat Garry Kasparov. Now you can understand what exactly Hardeep said just now or before that Kishore said. If it is domain specific, if it is trained properly on a specific task, it can be wonderful. Like, I mean, it was trained specifically for chess, it had all the data sets for chess, and it was able to beat Garry Kasparov. But when you are asking ChatGPT to write an IIT exam, which is like, I mean, covering a wide area of things, and it is trained for wide area of stuff, the performance will be average itself. So you get the perspective in terms of examples is what I wanted to.
Let me ground this a little bit, if I could. I mean, there's definitely a lot of interest in Gen AI, what LLMs could do, the flavor of the month, right? But really to be sustainable, and if you look about some of the things Rohit said, I think there are 4 areas that we really need to be very sure about, right? One area is the privacy security concern, right? And we call it 3 laws. Law of physics, are you able to send it back and get it back? Law of the land, sovereignty, what have you, and you also got law of economics, the cost, right? So there's a lot, and Hardeep touched upon it, he talked about hybrid AI, you would probably move towards a model where whether it is the computational or the hardware capabilities or stack capabilities, or it becomes a LLM changes. There are a lot of organizations that are looking at narrow transformer models, what have you, so that you run more and more of that within the enterprise, meeting the security concerns, and then just sending it over for the training and getting me back. That's kind of the whole hybrid AI, the privacy security conversation, number one, right? The second conversation, people are, for those who are really into this domain like the panel is, look at the computational power requirements of any of these organizations. You're talking about kilowatts of power per system. From physics, it is infeasible, right? You'll get to a situation where you are not sustainable at all. The traditional system for those who are into data centers will talk about air cooling, okay? But air cooling in this environment when each of them is 10 kilowatts of power, just not possible, right? So you really need to be thinking about how fast or how aggressive is it, the improvements with cooling technologies or with alternatives, even in the context of the hardware itself or the software capabilities itself, so you can make that really work in an environmental, sustainable, friendly way, number 2. Third thing is, if I can talk to my friend, he's talking about scholastic, deterministic, and we wanted to move fast, right? You wanted to move fast, it needs to be in a way space that it's federated, it is taking the latest. But as an organization, right, I'd always want to be able to take the latest data, the latest capabilities, and get the latest output out of it, which means there's no other choice but to be open about it. You really have to embrace an open ecosystem so that you're able to capture that conversation, use the hybrid AI approach as my colleague, Hardeep talked about, and then really look about the overall cost, because no enterprise, Rohit may differ, but no organization will implement a solution that is cost prohibitive. So I think taking cost, being open, looking at and privacy security is a primary driver, and then being able to work collaboratively as a people, country, set of organizations, I think is what could make this feasible. So that would be my request to the panel in the audience, because it's good to be on a hype of LLM, but we really need to see how to make it sustainable and work as we go forward. Sorry for butting in, but I just want to ground it in what it used to be.
So do Rohit differ in terms of the point that?
No, I agree. Actually, so Airtel, right? If I actually tell you, even till right now, right, we understand, yes, there will be increased productivity with generative AI, right? But actually, we haven't seen that happening in the organization yet,
True.
right? The future looks very, very promising, right? We are investing as a company a lot, right? But still, I think that we are still few months or years away, right, where we actually see that thing changing. It will change the world, right?
So we are all in the journey as of now.
Absolutely.
That's what I can say. So my next question is to Abhay. Abhay, see, one is what we are talking about so far is the benefits of Gen AI, but we all know that we have already started seeing the misuse of Gen AI as well, right? So how do we kind of, as organization or as say regulatory bodies, ensure that there is a proper control in place, right? Maybe at a micro level or at a macro level, to ensure that the people are safeguarded, right, at the end of the day.
So if we look at web, it has been there for ages. There are plenty of, mostly it is being used for positive outcomes, but then there is dark web, and there is a huge amount of nuisance that is created by that as well. So every new technology that comes into play will have pros and cons, will have positives and negatives. That's bound to happen. World over, regulatory bodies are still contemplating as to how do we try and control the negative aspects of it. But organizations who are trying to build products out of AI, they are trying to do, inherently also we have to make sure that there are certain things in AI which can result into wrong things, like biases, hallucinations that he talked about, like inadequate trainings resulting into wrong outcomes kind of stuff. So currently what is happening is most of the organizations, like I come from Nokia. Nokia works a lot on how can we improve network performances and anomaly detections and other things using AI. But then what are the kind of restrictions that we are trying to put in place for the way it can be taken care of? There is a very common saying, right? Man is known by the company he keeps. That's exactly true for AI. It totally depends on the kind of data sets that it is being exposed to. If the data set is of a certain type, the entire generated outcome will be biased to a certain outcome. Now, therefore, it is absolutely critical that when the generative AI is being exposed, it needs to go through various kinds of data sets, as much variety as possible. If that doesn't happen, you are sitting at a time bomb. That's one big problem. The other big problem that the organizations who are working on this need to take care about is the amount of training that is given to that particular thing. And it's not a cheap thing. He talked about the kind of cost. I'll give you a simple example of what is the level of costing that we are talking about. GPT-3, it took 1024 GPUs, I'm not talking CPUs, GPUs working for 34 days in order to create that kind of a training for GPT-3. You can understand. And the cost involved in doing this was close to about $5 million. So you can understand the amount of effort, cost, and compute power that is required in order to do this. The problem is everybody tries to take a shortcut when it comes to the cost. and therefore they won't adequately train it, and that would result in a catastrophe as well. So these are certain measures which the organizations who are working on it have to put in place. One, to remove the biases, which is very, very critical. Two, to invest sufficiently enough not to undertrain a person, undertrain the chat GPT and undertrain whatever AI outcome that you are generating and put it into the market for use. It will be catastrophic. But banning it, restricting it, that's not going to happen. We all know. There will be dark sides of it for sure. There are deep fakes which you can see in the markets already coming in, and they are very, very detrimental. But maybe with passage of time, regulations may come which will be slightly helpful. But today, nobody has a clue other than what the people who are working on it, they have to be ethical and they have to be designing moral directions under which the whole thing gets generated. Thank you.
I have a point to make, very short one. So my recommendation is, as of now, right, you don't use generative AI for decision making, right? It should not make decisions. Maybe it can help you with the data, right, with the summarization, etc. That may aid in decision making, which should not be making decisions for sure.
And I just, Rohit, if you want to continue, I know you, Somer, covered a bit about on the environmental aspect, right? So now my question, and all of you can answer this because it's pervasive, I would say, that the impact that it is going to have, right, on running these models and training these models and the amount of power consumption that it's going to take. Will it eventually surpass the benefit that we are going to see in the long run, or the other way around? It's a very subjective thing, I know, but then wanted to understand your views.
See, my answer in 2 lines would be that initially everything is unoptimized, right? And slowly when you see the benefits of it, right, you will slowly find ways to optimize it and how to reduce energy costs, etc. So we'll be soon reaching that point, right, where cost of running these models will be far lower than the benefits that we gain from these models, right?
Yeah, I completely agree with Rohit, where AI itself will be used to optimize or how to reduce the the power cost or the computing cost, all of that. So I mean, I'm just going a bit on an ethical direction where we speak about deep fakes being produced or something, and so a lot of work has already been started where AI algorithms for identify the deep fakes or images or the videos is already in place. So we are going to be slowly entering in a world where AI will fight AI or something to find the right answer. In fact, if you see the underlying structure of Gen AI, which is generative adversarial network, their AI fights with AI. One is discriminator, one is generator. They fight with each other, and then the generator wins, and then it gives the outcome to you. So that is that is the way it is going to be in future for all of the problem as well. Yeah.
I think it's a law of physics. I mean, it will come to a point, and the good part is, and I'm sure Hardeep would touch upon it as well, a lot will rely on the infrastructure providers to take proactive steps to do that. Because it's all not only about emission, it's all about sustainability, whatever, both material to consumption, right? And the good part is, I mean, for the lack of time, there's enough technologies that are being made available that would bring down at the infrastructure level itself to make this work. But we are not there because we haven't predicted where this will land, right? But I think the journey on both sides will coexist. And personally, I'm a technology optimist, right? So I believe I haven't seen a place where we hit a bottleneck that technology has not been able to solve. So I'll stop there.
So I think I was trying to address that point during the initial kind of opening as well. I think the reason we believe that hybrid AI helps with that whole premise that it is becoming cost prohibitive is that because you are able to offload. So there are 2 components to it. You have a training component to it, and you have inference component to it. Training probably is much smaller part of it, because once you train the model, you can always go back. But because you have billions of queries, right? So today search is like 10 billion queries in a day, or 60% is on the mobile, right? So if you are able to offload, let's say some of that moves to generative AI because that is more human-like, you don't have to go through multiple links. So you will have to figure out ways to offload. So that's number one. And there are, and then when I talk about the models, right, there are two trends. You have the LLMs going really big, but then there are you are quantizing it so that they can run on the edge device as well. So that helps you with both the cost as well as the energy component as well, because you are now running it on a low-cost device, and only the components which you cannot run locally because you don't have enough memory or the horsepower, those get offloaded to the cloud. And we have 5G, so Qualcomm wireless, I think I have to bring 5G in. So we have 5G and then probably 6G, where you are able to, you are always connected, you have good bandwidth available to you, so the latencies is not as big a deal as well. And then last component is, because if you run it on device, you can do a lot more personalization. The device already knows where it is,
Right.
what your favorite food is, what your favorite restaurants are. You could do some of those things also because of this local knowledge, and then you can train the model locally as well, personalize it much better.
Sure, thanks. So I'll have, oh, okay.
Sorry. So I'll just add a different perspective to this. So there is a reason why GPT-2 does not work well and GPT-3 has worked well. It has both the amount of training that it has gone through and the training data itself. So basically, the number of parameters that are there in the LLM have to be proportional to the amount of data it is trained on. Otherwise, it's not able to figure out all the intricacies of how the knowledge is spread out.
True.
So now the problem is, you take GPT-3, you ask it a medical question, it answers. You ask it a physics question, it answers. You ask it a sociology question, it answers. Why such variance? I mean, I don't need it. If I'm trying to create a medical LLM, I need it to teach general logic and the field of medicine. That's how we are experts in, a BTech is an expert in his own field. You don't have a person who is BTech who is expert in every field that is there. So you actually, if you can actually figure out where to cut off general training and where to kick off, start off specific training, and if that is what is, the training methodology that can get employed, I think you'll have much shorter, smaller LLMs, but with the same and even better capability as the large language models that you have.
Fine, I have the last question, and I want everybody to take maybe 30 seconds, because I want to also open it up for questions. Is generative AI a threat to employment?
This is something that everybody asks and everybody is worried about. So again, I'm fond of giving examples, so let me give you an example of what happened with the Hollywood script writers. Okay, so they went on a strike, and that strike was there for almost like 4 or 5 months, and the strike was against one thing: you cannot use ChatGPT or generative AI to create Hollywood scripts. Now, you understand the threat, you understand the kind of perception that people are carrying in minds as to where all can this intrude. Of course, anything new, any new technology that comes in has an impact because it's doing a job of what the person was doing. That was true for machines. That was true when mechanization came in. That was true when steam engine came in. That was true for every technological evolution that has happened till date. But still, what happens is, whenever a technology comes in, with it also comes in different kind of requirements. And to fulfill those requirements, which were not there earlier, now to fulfill those requirements, you definitely need people. Of course, those people will have to be trained differently. So saying that it won't impact jobs may not be the right, it may not be a yes or no answer. The kind of work that the AI would start working on will definitely get impacted, but there will be alternative works that would be alternative jobs that will end up creating. which will definitely help in terms of getting. So it's a very diplomatic answer, you might say, but the fact of life is it will take, there will be a time gap between the two things that I'm talking about. But yes, eventually the jobs with a different kind of a training will get generated due to AI as well.
Sure, thanks. Yes, of course. But in 30 seconds, please.
Yeah, just 2-3 lines. So everyone talks about training data, training model. Turn the table round, train the people. Here you got the answer. So training data, training machine is a few people job, but training humankind is all of us. We need to do, and we'll be surviving. Generative AI is something like sitting a smart person close to you, and you don't know how to talk to him, what to talk to him, how to get the right answer. So you will be equally fooling yourself if you don't make use of it. So the answer is that train the people. We are all going to be there with something in hand. Yeah.
In 30 seconds, please.
I think in 1 second, the answer is no. I think both Abhay and Vikas touched upon it. The skilling requirements will be different. It's interesting that you have to know how to write your prompts, if I go back to this conversation, to make it more human and natural. So I think if you change the skilling requirement, look at the autonomous driving as a corollary, right? And people thought that all the drivers, it's become moved from there to more assisted driving. That's a good analogy to think about, saying, if you see how the autonomous driving is evolving, you can think about Gen AI evolving in a similar direction.
It's more of an enabler rather than...
Yeah, exactly.
Rohit?
See, I think in every decade, right, there's a technology that actually promises a bright future, right? So in 2000, it was, let's say, internet and softwares, right? Then smartphones were in early 2000, right, 2010 around. Now I think it's Gen AI, right, which actually promises a very bright future. So the kind of work that humans are doing, right, it will actually, from this orbit, it will go to this orbit. Maybe it will enable us interplanetary travel or something like that, right? But yes, for our promising future, right, we need a technology like Gen AI, right, that will actually change what everyone is doing, right? And that becomes automated, and then human works on the next level of work.
Hardeep?
I think I'll give you two answers, but I'll keep it short. From a very selfish perspective, I do not want to do minutes of the meeting. I do not want to generate PPTs summarizing things. I think those tasks could be easily offloaded, and that frees up your bandwidth to do more. So that will be one trend. But then there is other trend, which I think everybody talked about. In the near term, there could be hit where you could have probably people with certain skills not knowing how they can kind of upgrade themselves and do it. But longer term, I think it'll still be net positive. So that's a easy way to look at it. And that's how all the, and I'm going with just historical data, that's how every technology shift, every generational shift has happened that way as well. So I think that will continue is what I think about.
Sure. Sure.
So motivation, that's the single word I'll say. And as long as motivation doesn't exist in machines, or until we figure out a way to put motivation into machines, we are all safe.
Nicely put. So I'll open it up for questions if anybody has any questions for the panelists.
Yeah, so that is what I was talking about when I said anomaly detection. So what we did along with Google, we used Google's AI tools for Vodafone in UK. We took all the data that comes up from the network for its performance enhancement, put it on the machine learning tools that Google has, and then that helped. It of course takes time in order to detect and identify what kind of an anomaly is due to what reason and so on and so forth. But once in place, it became very easy in order to handle the network performance much better, just because there was this anomaly detection tool which was working at the back end for improving the network performance. Does that answer your question? Sorry? This case study or use case? I think there will be a few white papers on this, both on Google and on Nokia site. You can find it.
Any other questions?
See, basically, yeah, I mean, AGI is a way to put it. So the way the training of LLMs is happening, we're nowhere close to AGI. I mean, let me put it that way, if to clarify that part. So the intelligence of humans comes from very different means and manners, not from the way, you don't look for the next word after seeing last 5 words. I mean, the way we synthesize text, the way we create art is very different from how machines are actually being trained to create art. So even without language, see, again, I'll go back to my point of language, logic, and data. All are tightly fused in an LLM, but in a human way of thinking, they are very separate entities. I reason about the language also. If you give me a sentence, I can actually reason about the logic, and I can reason about the logic of that logic. That is the second order thinking I have, which machines don't have at this point of time. Or at least they don't know how, we don't know how to make them do that. So that is the problem. And all the large language models that are there currently, how they work, why they work, it's all black box. Nobody knows. I mean, to be able to understand it, there have been a lot of visualizations, there have been a lot of analysis, there are a lot of studies that have been done on trying to understand how they're, but nobody is there yet. So we do not know how to get a hang of them. It's like you put a large animal into a room, gave it a lot of food, gave it a lot of trained it, made it big, and then pushed it out onto the world. Sometimes he'll do what you want, sometimes he'll do what you don't want. That's the state we are in. We have to get a lot of handle on the models before they can evolve to the next level, and they're nowhere close to being an AGI right now. See, we do not know that AGI is there until we see it. So I'm not happy with the way you're terming it, saying is anybody trying to do AGI? I mean, how do you know this path leads to AGI? Nobody knows that. So that's the problem.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. It was an absolute pleasure to moderate the session, and thank you for participating. Have a good evening.